Hello there, happy Friday. This is Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have the Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember card kit. This kit is no longer available, but some of the elements are, so I will have those linked down below. Let's go ahead and take a look at what came inside this kit. This was so jam-packed full of stuff. I bought it right away, and I think it sold out right away. But I'm showing you guys this because you'll get a lot of card ideas, and some of this stuff is still available. So of course you'll start off with some candy, and then we have this beautiful sequin mix. It's really filled, and it also comes with these two balloon shakers. I'll make a card with those. You'll also have the Celebrate 3x3 stencil. Super cute. You could mask off parts of that, and you could, ink it, sponge it, whatever you want to do. I end up using the Glitz glitter gel. This is from Gina K, and this is in Bubblegum. Really pretty. We also have 3 envelopes, and those are in white, Schoolhouse Red, and Audrey Blue. We also have a pin that says Color the World. Love it. And a palette knife that'll go well with your glitter gel. We have a spool of ribbon, and I feel like this spool of ribbon you could use either that way or you could flip it over and use it the other way, of course. It's really pretty. It's pink and gold. You're also going to get the Simon Says Stamp Let's Celebrate die, and then that one will take up the whole front of a card pretty much. So that's a A2 that I'm putting it on. You also have the Simon Says Stamp Paint Palette die, which is fabulous. That'll take up the whole front of a card as well. Then we have the Honeybee rainbow paper. This stuff is so cute. I love all the different patterns, and obviously it's in rainbow order with some pretty rainbow patterns. You get the 4x6 Sizzix foam adhesive, and you also get the rainbow shattered glass foil transfer sheets. And I used this with the 4x6 Sizzix foam adhesive that wasn't entirely successful, but I think it may have been user error. So I'll show you that. But those are beautiful. You also get these American Crafts Shimelle Puffy stickers. I don't use these on card making, but I'm already using them in my planner. They're just cute for a planner, I think. You get the awesome 6x8 Sweet Birthday stamp set. That is still available, and there's matching dies, but isn't that so cute? Then you get this Tim Holtz metallic craft cardstock in a bunch of rainbow colors. So that's a lot. They're all 8x8 too. And then you get cardstock. You're going to get 2 white pieces of cardstock, and you'll get 1 in Audrey Blue. And that's going to round it out. So we'll go ahead and get started making some cards. For card number 1, I'm going to start off by separating the Let's Celebrate die. I plan to use the 4x6 Sizzix foam square for the background, and then I'm going to cut out the other Let's Celebrate just using some white cardstock that I have. I've got some Express It cardstock that I'm putting into my mini Misti, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment along with that little cupcake using Memento Tuxedo black ink, because the plan is to alcohol marker color the little cupcake. And I'm not going to show you the coloring. This video is mostly about the ideas. So there it is, all colored, and now I'm just going to fussy cut it out because I don't have the matching dies, although I can see how those would be very handy. And I'm going to start kind of assembling my pieces. So I have cut down some of that cardstock, or the pattern paper that came in the kit. I'm going to adhere that down to some of the Audrey Blue cardstock that came in the kit as well, just using some liquid glue. And then I'm also going to take that extra strip and just put it on the inside. So that's always a fun way to just add a little element to the inside of your cards, just using little strips of paper. And then I'm going to take some of this. This is where I make the mistake. So I peel off the top of the foam tape, and it's fine. And I think this would have worked out just fine had I not burnished it so much. But I put the shattered glass foil on top, and I really burnished. And like I said, I think I did too much. It starts out working okay. I'm like, okay, where it's not sticking, I'll just push down. Well, it ends up sticking a little too well in some areas, and it ends up ripping that top layer of the foam tape off. So you'll see here what I'm talking about. But I I did not want to waste that foam that I used along with that shattered glass. So I find a way to work with it, and it's not super noticeable. And unless you were really, really looking for the mistake, you're not going to really see it too much. I mean, you see it here, but what I decide to do is I'm thinking, do I cover it with the cupcake? No. I can obviously going to cover it with the words, but I'm going to go a little further, and I'm just going to take some of my alcohol markers. These are my Copics, and I'll color those white spots that are showing from the foam. And I'll do that big yellow spot in the center, and then that darker spot on the side there. And it ends up, it doesn't look perfect, obviously, but it's okay. I end up even covering, I do a little bit more even on the back end. To adhere down the Let's Celebrate, I'm using my reverse tweezers along with some Multimedia matte liquid glue. And then it just comes together super easy. And then I'm going to kind of look at how I want to adhere that onto the front of the card. Just kind of getting placement. I grab some of the ribbon and I decide I want that on the bottom. So I'll use my liquid glue to adhere that down to the bottom. You could use some score tape, would work great. Even a tape runner would probably work fine. I just chose liquid glue because it was right there, and oftentimes I'm a lazy crafter. So yeah, I'll just stick that down, and then I'm going to also use some foam tape on the back of my sentiment and adhere that right over the top. And then I'm going to flip that over, and I'll cut off the excess. And with that leftover piece, I end up adhering that to the other side. So it'll look like it's connecting to the Let's Celebrate, because I'm going to peel off that backing paper and adhere that right down. And then my cupcake's going to get tucked in there. If I'd been thinking, I would have tucked that first. But I wasn't. And I would have, if I'd been thinking even further, I would have already put my adhesive on my cupcake, which I wasn't. So I put a little piece of foam tape on the back upper part and some liquid adhesive for the rest of it. And so that way it'll look like the cherries kind of popped up. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I do grab some white Blizzard glitter drops. This is what I'm talking about. I stick that in the center there to try and cover up that mistake even a little bit more, just adding those dots like they're all over the place. And it ends up being okay. So that's going to finish off card number 1. Mistakes and all, I actually really like this card. For card number two, I'm going to grab out some of that Glitz glitter gel. And to start, I have cut down some of that metallic cardstock to about 3 inches by 3 inches. I'm taping that down to my surface, and then I'm going to tape down the stencil. That is the Celebrate stencil. I'm just taping it down with a little bit of washi tape, making sure to cover all of the edges. And then I'm going to grab my palette knife and that Glitz glitter gel, and I'm going to stir that up. As you can see, it's very cloudy at the top, but that just means that the glitter had all settled to the bottom, which is fine, no big deal. So I've never worked with this stuff before, so I have no idea how quickly this dries. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out a couple of baby wipes just to have on hand and ready to go. And I'm also going to make sure that as soon as I am done, I am going to take all of my pieces to the sink to get cleaned off. So I'm just spreading that around. I was pretty liberal with how I put that on there, but I'm just scraping that off, and I'm keeping in mind that I'm doing this over the top of something that's already kind of shiny. It's coated, but that's okay. It ends up working really beautifully together. And then I'll peel off my washi tape. And I did have a little bit of slide, so because of that, in the very center, one of those balloons didn't get as crisp as I would have liked, but that's okay because I'm going to put an image over the top of that, so it won't be a big deal. I've trimmed down more of that cardstock along with some of the patterned paper, and now I'm stamping out the little boba tea with some that was Express It cardstock and some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and now I'm going to use my VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink to stamp out my sentiments, and then I'm going to color out my image and then trim everything down. So I fussy cut my little boba tea, made him look like a little matcha tea, and I'm also going to use my paper cutter to trim down all of my sentiments, and then we're going to get ready to start assembling everything. So I'll use some liquid glue to adhere down my pattern paper to the metallic cardstock, and then I'll use some more of that on the back of my little stenciled piece. And then I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of my Happiest Birthday to You along with foam tape on the back of my little boba tea. I love how he has a little smiley face. Makes me think of this cute little place we used to go to called the Tea Spout in El Paso. Darling little place to get tea. And I love small businesses, so. And then I'll pop up my little boba tea, and then I'm going to tuck the other 2 sentiments that I stamped out just behind him. So it's going to say your special day, and I've got it at an angle. And then for you will go down on the lower left-hand side of my little tea as well. Tuck him under there. And then we're going to adhere that to a white card base. So that was just some of the cardstock that came in the kit. And that'll cover up the whole front of the A2 size card. And then I'm also going to tack down some of the confetti that came, the little sequin mix that came in the kit. I'll just put a few of those down using my crystal katana and some more of that liquid glue. And then when we're done with that, that's going to finish off card number 2. I think this one turned out really cute. It's a little bit busy, but it's so fun. Card number 3 is going to use that beautiful shattered glass piece of patterned paper that came in the kit along with the giant happy birthday that's outlined and overlapping. And I'm going to originally ink this up with some Memento Tuxedo black ink, but I go back and I change my mind because I really want this to be kind of glossy. And this could have gone bad, and it kind of started out bad. So I go over the top of it with some VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. And then I decide to cover that with some Icicle embossing powder, which is just a clear embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And I make a mess because I told you I'm a lazy crafter. I told you. So I make a mess, and also I should have used my magic powder bag. So you see that mess? I kind of just blow on it and it goes away. And since I don't plan to do any coloring, I'm not really that concerned about it. But yeah, it stuck to places I didn't want it to stick to. And, you know, just learn from me. Don't be a lazy crafter. Just take the time, take the few extra seconds. You won't spill embossing powder everywhere, and you won't have a mess. So it ends up being okay. So I'm going to fussy cut it out, and then I'm going to line it up with a piece of white cardstock inside of my Misti along with the rainbow pieces. So I'm going to start with that smallest piece, and I'm going to ink it up with some Tailored Expressions inks that I have. These inks they're good inks. They will dye or stain your stamp a little bit. So if that bothers you, I wouldn't use inks like this. I'm not sure how they're formulated, but it's just a little bit different. And I'm just lining them up, each one on top of the other, and going over the top of it with my little ink cubes, stamping it down. And they are the types of inks that will even out over time. So they might look splotchy at first, but they even out. And then that last one I pick is a yellow color. I didn't write down the colors, I do apologize. But I stamped that out, and then I'm going to get ready to stamp some more elements just all around. So those little stars, and there's some little hearts, and for whatever reason this is just screaming Rainbow Bright to me. You know, I was a child of the 80s, so Rainbow Bright was all the rage back then, you know, and Lisa Frank and all that. So you throw a rainbow at me and I'm all about it. And to assemble my card, I had cut down some more of that patterned paper, and I'm just going to use some liquid glue to put that down onto that light blue panel, and then I'm going to put that down onto my white card base. This will end up being a side folder, but it'll take up the whole front of the A2 size card. And then as you can tell, I covered the back of my happy birthday with some foam tape so that there will definitely be some dimension, because this is obviously a very flat card. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I'm going to grab some Nuvo Violet Galaxy drops and just put a few of those in that upper left corner and that lower right corner. And then I'll tap those down to make them look a little bit more like enamel dots. And then that's going to finish off card number 3. Really easy, fast card. Card number 4 is going to use that paint palette die along with several small little pieces of the metallic cardstock. But to start off, I'm going to run that palette through using some of that patterned paper, just one of the white ones with the pattern on it. And then I'm going to just every other one put down a color on the back of my palette and run that through, and then I'll pull those pieces out. And I did add 2, so I used all the colors that came in the kit along with some colors that I had from a previous kit so that I could go in rainbow order. And then I will run it through one more time, getting the rest of those. And then I'm going to put washi tape all over the background, just covering mostly those holes, so that way when I want to turn it over, I can just easily take my crystal katana and fit those little paint splotches right in the holes that they belong to. So this was really super easy. I just went along and in rainbow order did all of those. And oh, I love how the metallic looks. It's just fun. And you could go over the top of it with like some crystal glaze or something like that, and it would just be so pretty. And then I do have a little piece of black that I had run through to cover up that hole. Now I'm going to get ready to assemble my card. So I cut down some more of that card, the pattern paper, and for now I'm going to stamp my sentiment onto some black cardstock, just using my Versamark ink, and then I'm going to cover that with some alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And I learned from before, I'm using a coffee filter this time. So that way I don't have too much of a mess. And then I'll heat that till that is smooth and melted. And then I'm going to trim that down and even give it a fishtail banner. And then I'm going to put everything into my mini Misti, and I'm going to stamp another sentiment just to kind of round around the palette. So I'll close the door of my Misti, and then I'm going to manipulate that just a little bit so it's not quite as curved, because it's meant to kind of go around the cloud, but you could put it around anything. It just needs to be a little less curvy. I inked that up with VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink, stamped that down, and then I put foam tape all over the back of my palette and my sentiment, and then I'm going to adhere those down to the front of my card panel. And you'll see it's like I have this vision of, I don't know, I'm not paying attention, and I almost have the words completely off the panel. Thankfully, I fix it before it adheres too well. And then I'll flip that over and trim off the excess. And then I'm going to just use some liquid glue to adhere that to my card base. And that's going to finish off card number 4. Super easy. For card number 5, I have a piece of metallic cardstock cut down to an angle, and I have both of those balloon shakers that I plan to use. So I'm going to remove the release paper. This is the key here. Remove the release paper first before you put anything into them, because otherwise you're going to make a mess. So I remove the release paper, and then I'm going to grab that confetti, so the confetti sequin mix, and I'm going to be very liberal with how I dump that in there. And then I'm going to cover both of those with a different piece of metallic cardstock, making sure to really press so that those stay down. And those are just some scraps that I had. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut all around the shaker itself so that they will be balloons. And then we're going to get ready to adhere those to the front of that panel. Now, if I had been thinking, I would have put my panel onto my card base, which is just some of the white cardstock. I would have done that first, because I do some stamping. So I would have put the panel down first, done my stamping, and then adhered my balloons. But I guess I was just so overly excited about these little confetti shaker balloons that I put them down first. So you'll see the first mistake. I flip over my panel and I try to cover that with the glue, and of course one of the balloons comes off. So there you go. But I adhere the panel down to the card base, and then I just pick up my balloon and put it back on, and then I get ready to do some stamping. But I'm making sure my panel's all ready to go. So if I had, like I said, been thinking, I would have put the panel down first, then done the stamping, then put the balloons, because I have these 2 sentiments that say, let's celebrate you. And then I put those at the very tippy top of my stamp block, because I was afraid they were going to hit the shaker pouch that's sticking up. It works out okay, but again, hindsight. So I stamp those out, and then I grab an alcohol marker, because a regular marker is not going to work on the shiny surface of this metallic cardstock. And I'm grabbing my T-ruler, and I'm just going along a line for the balloon string. And this is an Arteza bullet nib Everblend marker. And then I will flip that around, and then I'll just add like the little tie. I'll just do a little hand-drawn tie at the top. And then we'll get ready to start working on our sentiment, which I did already, since we'd done this once before. I just white heat embossed the sentiment, and then I put some foam tape on the back of it. And then I'm going to adhere that down to the front of my card and cut off any excess if there is any. And then for my last bit of embellishment, I was very liberal with some more of that confetti. I just put that all over that background, and I'm using my crystal katana along with some more of that liquid glue to adhere all of these to the front of my card. And if you have never watched any of my videos before, I am typically much more detailed in how I present my videos as far as, showing you the whole process of a card. But because this is 6 cards in one, I'm going to cut out some of the details. So just so you're aware. For my 6th and final card for this particular kit, I have cut down a bunch of that pattern paper into little strips. And now I'm going to take just a tape runner, and I'm going to run that all along where I think how far I'm going to go down. I end up having too much on there, but that's okay. That is an easy fix. And I'm going to go in rainbow order and just adhere those little paper strips all across my card base. And this card base is the Audrey blue that came in the kit. Just working down rainbow order. And that pattern paper makes it so easy to do because, well, it has every color of the rainbow in there. All those bright, vibrant colors. So this was a lot of fun, and it might have been my favorite card, actually. And I love how all those patterns, or all those pieces of pattern paper, have a different kind of pattern front and back. Although that makes it a little difficult to decide which side you're going to end up using. And then that final one will be that little pink one. And as you notice, I do have extra adhesive there, so I'm going to use an adhesive remover. So this is good for tape runner, and it grips the adhesive and lightly pulls it up. And in that case, it actually tore my paper a little bit, but I had a plan for that part of the paper anyway, so I'm not concerned about it. And then I'm going to flip it over and trim off all of those excess pieces. And then we'll be left with this pretty rainbow panel on the side of our card. And then I'm going to do my stamping. So I'm going to stamp out the cloud. This is on some of that Express It cardstock once again, and I'm inking that up with Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'll stamp that down. And I'm going to stamp 2 of just the regular clouds, and then I'm going to Copic color these and fussy cut those out. And then I'm going to put some foam adhesive on the back of those. But before I do that, I'm going to line that up inside my Misti, and I'm going to stamp down that sentiment. That's the rounded sentiment. It goes around the cloud. And then this is where I'll grab my foam adhesive and put that on the back of those clouds and adhere those down to the front. And I love adding things so that they kind of come off the page, because then it looks like there's a continuation beyond just the card. So I'll trim off all those excess pieces. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I'm going to use some White Blizzard glitter drops. These are quickly becoming a favorite. I don't know why I never owned any glitter drops before, but they are so fun. So I'll put down a few drops here, a few drops there, and even a few more at the bottom. And then that's going to finish off card number 6. And I just think that's so fun. A cloud with a face. How cute is that? So let's go ahead and take a look at all 6 of the cards that I made today. I would love to know which one of those is your favorite. As I said before, if you watch any of my videos, you know I'm usually much more detailed in the description of how I make my cards. But because there were 6 cards in here, we had to be fairly quick about it. Otherwise, this would have been, you'd be sitting here forever. So go ahead and leave in the description box down below the card that was your favorite if you had one. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And thank you so much for dropping by.